Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order. Attendance missing today, Councillor Graham and His Worship Mayor Christopher, and Councillor Boyce is here and will be joining us momentarily. Please remain standing for a moment of reflection from the City Clerk.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Councillor McCaw.
Yes, please. 8B4, Grant Committee regarding the Humane Society.
Anyone else? Councillor Panchuk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under the bylaws, bylaw number 2018-71, it's to appoint bylaw officers for the Quinte Mall. I own a business that is a tenant at the Quinte Mall, and I'll be declaring a pecuniary interest.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Thompson.
Declared conflict on 11.1. Read the reconsideration of the motion to report item number 882 from April 9th. Property on Sydney Street. I declared in the first meeting and in declaring again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That everybody? No public meetings. Can I have a motion? Reading and confirmation of minutes of Budget Council meeting of April 10th and 11th, 2018. Special in-camera meeting of April 10th, 2018. Regular council meeting of April 23rd, 2018. And the regular in-camera meeting of April 23rd, 2018. Councillor Denius, Councillor Carr. Anything out of the minutes? All in favor? And that is passed. We have three deputations. 6.1, Heather Smith, Executive Director of the Belleville General Hospital Foundation, will make a deputation to Council. And that would... and Peter Knudsen will obviously make the deputation. Peter, if you can just hit the talk button there and so we can all hear you.
Right there, right? Is that better?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Councillors. I am Peter Knudsen. I'm Chair of the Belleville General Hospital Foundation, and we're not here to ask you for money today at all, believe it or not. We're here basically to bring you up to date in what we've been doing and to tell you how much we appreciate what you have done. And first of all, best wishes to Councillor Mike Graham, who I understand has had a spot of trouble and whose mother I've known most of my life, and Mike too, so I wish him well and I hope he's recovering nicely, and I hope he's back here soon. So that aside, I'm sure we'll all see him soon, but it was a bit of a surprise when I heard that. Quinte Healthcare, I guess we all know what that is. And we know it's a big site. We know it is a whole 100 miles apart, probably from the hospital in Picton to Bancroft. Trenton, of course, you know, those four sites, there's, to the best of my knowledge, 236 beds in total in Quinte Healthcare, but you might be interested to know in Belleville, of there is 192 of them. So really, Belleville is the kind of the hub of the wheel here. It's the primary and secondary hospital that is fed by, and by others, but by the primary sites alone in Picton and Bancroft and Trenton. So the needs, as we are reminded on a very regular basis by the hospital executive, are many, of course. And, you know, we have had many campaigns over the years, 30 years or so, I guess the foundation has been in existence. And the biggest single supporter of those campaigns is the group in front of me, of course, the municipality, the City of Belleville, who have shown over time their largesse towards Quinte Healthcare and to Belleville General Hospital, which is probably a timely thing. And, you know, I, in past meetings, sitting with the mayor, who's unfortunately not here, we had some discussions about this deputation and about what might be said. And one of the things that I kind of tried to point out after the mayor pointed out to me that you have many people looking for money, and of course you do, but on the other hand, You know, our hospital is, I'd like to think, infrastructure to this community. There's probably not anyone in this room who hasn't used the services of Belleville General Hospital, and if you haven't, hopefully you won't have to soon enough, but I'm sure it's there for your use. And of course, what the citizens here and the board of the foundation and the staff of the foundation and the many, many volunteers who help make it run try to do is to provide funding for equipment and for some construction-related activities for Quinte Healthcare. Now, you know, last year alone we had over 13,000 donors that made over 62,000 donations. But some of the big things are easy to sell. You helped us with the new CAT scanner, which has been installed, and the city contributed $1.5 million towards that. And the price of the CAT scan installed was, of course, $2 million, and, you know, because of the paint on the walls or whatever has to happen about those sorts of things. So we're here, I'm here, to try and impress upon you things you already know, such as how important our hospital is, how important the City of Belleville has been to the foundation and obviously to Quinte Healthcare in helping to keep it a first-rate facility in terms of equipment. You know, from say 10 or 15 years ago, about $180 million has gone into improvements and additions at Belleville General Hospital. But once that bill's paid, and it has been, the ongoing need for equipment and re-equipment, replacing stuff that technologically has gone beyond its shelf life or wears out because of the usage that it gets, that's where the foundation of every community in Ontario comes into play, and this community here in Belleville that has made deputations to you for money, but on the other hand, the city has always been a willing participant and partner in our goal to try and provide good equipment for Quinte Healthcare, to try and, of course, the vision is to try and make it probably the best equipped community hospital in Ontario. And whether we are or whether we're not, but, you know, we're striving towards that at all times, and basically to try and make anyone's needs there easy to be met. And I'm just wondering, I mean, I could read all of this, and you know that the foundation is grateful to the city for everything that they've done. We've had many conversations about what the foundation does, and I think it's an educational process, not just with council, because I think councillors are pretty aware of what goes on, but to the public in general, who many, many times don't have any idea that A, there is a foundation, and if there is, what it does. And most people don't realize that the Government of Ontario, the Ministry of Health, does not go out and buy equipment. Oftentimes, the foundation is asked to donate is a funny word, isn't it, is asked to provide money to Quinte Healthcare to help leverage funds for the province. This foundation, with your help, was asked to provide $1.5 million about 3 or 4 years ago to Quinte Healthcare so they could find another $4.5 million from the province of Ontario, and that was to do the new medical device reprocessing department, which is now pretty much state-of-the-art and would stand up to the tutelage of any other hospital in this province. And you might recall the headlines back in those days that operations were being canceled because of instruments that weren't properly or couldn't properly be cleaned and cleansed, and so obviously rather than take a chance, you know, operations were postponed or rescheduled in other centers. So, you know, the need never stops and the requests never stop from Quinte Healthcare, but we as a board and our staff try to prioritize those requests into what we feel and what the hospital agrees to are the most important. We try to get the best value for every dollar we receive, whether it's from a municipality. We try to basically earn every dollar that is donated to the foundation, that we try and shepherd into the best resources of Quinte Healthcare. That's a basic overview of what we do, and you all know what you've done And, over the number of years, we've had large campaigns and smaller campaigns, and we'll be on campaign again. There's never a time when you're not campaigning for something. There's never a time when equipment isn't wearing out. And the nice thing is probably the basic equipment at Quinte Healthcare is in pretty good order, but on the other hand, they want to expand the diagnostic department for some new cameras. They want to increase the size and scope of the oncology department, which Dr. McIntosh started some years ago. And so a lot of treatments can be done and maintenance can be done in the city of Belleville rather than, say, driving to Peterborough or going to Kingston to have maintenance, chemotherapy, that sort of thing. And so there are 3 oncologists now with Quinte Healthcare. At one time there were no oncologists. So, it's a step in the right direction, but all of this, of course, requires new spaces, it requires renovations, it requires extra equipment, and so I guess with extra service comes the demand for extra money. So, having said just that, I would ask you, does anyone have any questions that maybe I could help perhaps answer? Statistics or anything you might wish to know?
Any questions around the table? No? I think that council certainly understands the ongoing need and the fact that councils over the years have supported Belleville General Hospital to the extent, as you point out, where Belleville is the largest contributor. We know the need, we know the importance, and you're right on when you talked about Belleville General Hospital and Quinte Healthcare being infrastructure, and perhaps the most important infrastructure that we have as a community, because without it we can't grow, and without it, of course, serving our citizens now, forcing them elsewhere to get treatments just doesn't, in this day and age, we need as many services here as possible. So there's no questions of the deputation. Anything else, Mr. Knudsen?
I'll just leave you with the thought that we appreciate your time and your consideration. And those cameras I mentioned, it just popped up on the page here, they're called nuclear medicine cameras, and they're only $1.5 million a piece. But what they do is, I guess, they're able to detect even the tiniest hint of a disease, i.e. like cancer and so on, before it becomes more life-threatening, that type of thing. So, we're trying to stay out there and fund some of the cutting-edge stuff. We're trying to get, obviously, as is the city, with their doctor recruitment program, new physicians here, and new physicians, of course, graduating physicians are used to high-tech equipment, and so to get them here, I think we have to be prepared to offer them the best of equipment that we possibly can to make sure that there's a welcome environment for them to work. So, of course, you know what we're here for. You know why we're here. You know what we're trying to do. And I sure, on behalf of the foundation, appreciate your giving us a bit of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Resolution that the deputation of Peter Knudsen, he's not the executive director, but chairman of the foundation, Belleville Hospital Foundation, be received. Councillor Panchuk, Councillor Denias, all in favor? Thank you. 6.2, Perry DeCola, General Manager of Environmental Services, will make a presentation to Council. And just for Council's information, it's report item 8A3. Mr. DeCola.
I'd like to actually defer to.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call our representatives from Aqua, who are a very valuable team member for us, to actually provide the presentation. When the opportunity comes to provide good information and good news, sometimes the people that do the work should be the ones that do that presentation. So I'd like to call Cindy Spencer and James Taylor to the podium.
Thank you, Perry.
And just for the information of those who aren't aware, Aqua is the Ontario Clean Water Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, councillors, and thank you, Perry, for the introduction. My name is Cindy Spencer, and I'm the regional manager representing Aqua. And with me this afternoon, I have James Taylor. He's our senior operations manager, and he's the gentleman responsible for the day-to-day operations and maintenance of another key piece of infrastructure, well, two pieces of infrastructure, really, the Jane Forrester Pre-Treatment Park and the Belleville Water Pollution Control Plant. The Ontario Clean Water Agency operates and maintains, one of your largest capital assets. And we operate both the Jane Forster Pretreatment Park and the Belleville Water Pollution Control Plant under what's called an environmental compliance approval, which is issued by the Ministry of the Environment. So it's environmentally legislated. We meet regularly with city representatives, Perry DeCola and Richard Reinhardt, monthly to provide them with status updates. We provide monthly reports and a 400-page comprehensive annual report. Aqua also has a client advisory board which meets quarterly, and the client advisory board is made up of our clients, and they discuss stakeholder issues, they discuss opportunities for improvement, and Belleville's CAO Rick Kester is on that committee. One of the recommendations of the committee was to provide a consolidated report to council on the performance of your infrastructure, your water pollution control plant, and your pretreatment plant. So we have provided a 4-page document which does just that. This is the first page of the document. It says the year 27 year in review. On the first page is an aerial view of the water pollution control plant. And what you see is that it's actually quite a large facility. It's located southwest of the hospital on 131 St. Paul Street. And you'll see there are several large rectangular tanks, and they're open tanks, and you'll also see 7 circular closed tanks, and we call those digesters. What you don't see is the massive underground network of tunnels and chambers, which house a significant amount of pumps, valves, piping, etc. It's all underground, and it goes for miles, I would say, James. Yeah. If you ever decide to come for a tour, you have to go see the tunnels underground. If you've ever seen the movie Alien, it will remind you of that. Page 2 is a dashboard. I don't know how to move it to page 2. Thank you. Page 2 is a dashboard of our key performance indicators, with green meaning the results are positive and on target, yellow meaning the results are in range but not yet achieved, and red is bad, and there are no red circles on this dashboard. So you'll see that under compliance excellence, we've met all the wastewater requirements. We've had a ministry inspection. We do get inspected by the Ministry of the Environment regularly, and we have addressed all of the action items. Under health and safety, we've had 0 lost time infractions. We have a near-miss reporting system, and we have a minimum number of near misses that our staff need to report upon to meet our KPI, so we've exceeded that. And we have successfully completed over 12 hours of safety training, each staff member. Under operational excellence, you'll see 2 yellow circles, and both of them are related. So if you look back on page 1, and you look at all of those tanks, there's a lot of water in those tanks, and their main purpose is to remove solids. So anything you put down the drain, anytime you have a shower, do the laundry, flush your toilet, it comes to us. And these tanks can only hold a certain amount of volume, so when we have heavy rains or snowmelt, the flow increases from a daily average volume of about 30,000 cubic meters a day to over 120,000 cubic meters a day, so not double, but triple when we have heavy, heavy rains or snowmelt with rains. So in order to prevent washing all of the solids into the Bay of Quinte, the plant is actually engineered to bypass a certain section of the plant that has all of the solids. So effectively, we close a gate, we divert the flow around the tanks that have all of the solids, and so they skip part of the process. They do receive primary treatment, they do receive disinfection before entering the Bay of Quinte, and unfortunately, this happens when we have heavy rain that exceeds our average day flow. And in 2017, we had 7 events. So that is why on page 2, James, if you can go, yeah, you're there, sorry. You'll see that the facility was not operated within plant capacity due to bypass situations. And unfortunately, we've seen a significant change in weather patterns, and it's unfortunately beyond our control when it rains and this happens. So we have reduced energy consumption. We've also treated over 12.5 million liters of wastewater. And Jane Forster Park, that's what JFP stands for. It's a pre-treatment system. It collects groundwater from Myers Pier, and we process it, and there's been no exceedances in the effluent from that plant as well. Under asset protection, we've installed a computerized work maintenance management system that I'll talk about on page 3. We provided the city with a 10-year maintenance and capital plan, and it says we've completed 4 approved capital projects, but I know we've done more than that. What would you say?
At least 20.
At least 20 capital plans. Okay, so page 3 talks about asset protection, and I mentioned earlier we installed a new computerized maintenance management system, and because it's important for us to maintain your assets to get as much life out of them as we can. So this management system categorizes every piece of equipment. It provides electronic work orders to our operations staff, and in 2017, almost 3,000 work orders were generated and completed. Capital projects, this shows a list of just 3 of the 20 capital projects we completed, and you'll see that the costs for some of these projects are significant. And under energy, this is a piece that we're really, really proud of. So in Aqua, we do have some energy experts, and several years ago we conducted an energy audit at the Belleville Water Pollution Control Plant, and this resulted in James, because he deserves a lot of credit for making some substantial changes that reduce the energy consumption. So some of the changes were to automate the process equipment. In the past, it would be automatically turned on, manually turned on. So we have automated it so that it turns on, not on peak time, but at night when the energy consumption is lower. All of the tunnels I mentioned in the underground, they were on all the time. The lights were on all the time. Because it's quite dark in there. So James has installed motion sensor LED lights. So the energy we saved just from switching out the lights has been amazing. We've purchased more energy efficient equipment. So while the hydro rates continue to increase, the consumption has decreased, and the efficiencies have resulted in an estimated $900,000 since 2009. Another way that we have tried to make savings for the city of Belleville is through biosolids. So biosolids are the processed liquid waste that is used as fertilizer on farmers' fields. And the biosolids are trucked out using tanker trucks, and the trucking fees are a huge expense. So James has added a chemical called a polymer to thicken the biosolids from about 2.5% to anywhere from 6 to 7%. Which has meant there's a lot less trucks, and it has made a significant increase of $1.75 million since 2013. And on the last page, we demonstrate our commitment to community engagement. So we're proud to support our local communities through outreach programs such as One Water, which is, there's Perry DeCola. That's a nice picture, Perry. Through our One Water program. It's a program we teach at the grade 8 level to engage students in understanding that water is a finite source. We talk about how we treat water, how we conserve water, and we're also proud to sponsor co-op programs with the local college, and we have hired quite a lot of graduates from Loyalist College, and our staff live and work in your community. So on behalf of Aqua, we would like to thank you for making us your operator of choice and look forward to a continued partnership with the City of Belleville. Also, if any member of council is interested in touring either the Water Pollution Control Plant or the Jane Forster Treatment Plant, please contact James or myself, and we'd be happy to show you the plant. And if there are any questions, we'd be happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions? I guess everybody got it all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Resolution slightly altered that the presentation of Perry DeCola, General Manager of Environmental Services, Cindy Spencer and James Taylor of the Ontario Clean Water Agency regarding the 2017 Ontario Clean Water Agency Performance Report for the Belleville Pollution Control Plant be received and referred to report item 8A3. Councillor Denius, Councillor Carr. Any questions? All in favor? Passed. Item 7, correspondence, 7.1, May 3rd. Oh, pardon me. I guess we better not forget 6.3. Mark Coyle, Manager of Information Systems for the City of Belleville, will provide a demonstration of the Departmental Performance Standards Community Dashboard display.
Yes.
Mr. Coyle, welcome.
Thank you very much. So I'm here to discuss the output from the Departmental Performance Standards Committee, which was to identify key performance indicators for the City of Belleville, and then find a way to display them in a meaningful way so that residents and the community can understand how we're doing. I think the committee was struck last year, and this is the output from that committee. So here we have it. This will go live unless council has a strong objection any minute. So basically what we have is the dashboard here, which identifies all of the specific disciplines that the committee agreed that we would report on. So for the example there in the building, it says monthly new single unit dwellings. So it'll show that that was updated as of April, as you can see it. And let's get this here. So if you click on it, a resident can then go in and actually see a detailed view, month by month, of all of the data that is entered for all of the specific disciplines that are identified. So they can see any trends, etc. I mean, there's some interesting ones that I saw. So here, monthly visits to Glenmore. I was interested just to see that there's 378. If you're interested, you can click on the tile. And let's see. You can see here the trend as it increases, as the weather gets better, etc. But you could use this to see if an event is actually generating more registrants, etc. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is the first year that we're doing it, so we're in data collection mode, which means all of the circles you're going to see are green because, you know, we're just collecting the data. As time passes, then we can, through the committee, set thresholds where if it's starting to fall behind pace, we can just change it to an amber, or if it's really falling behind pace, we can change it to a red, which will show that there's an issue that needs to be addressed. This was a lot of work was done by our new web technician, Donnie Bridgen. He brings a lot of skill to this, and so the nice thing is for the actual individuals, the managers, to put the data in, they click on a private link, put in the data, hit submit, and every night it'll just be updated just that quickly. So other than that, the things to bring to your attention is that if you just go to www.belleville.ca/dashboard, this is what you'll see after 4:30. And basically that's it. We're going to also have it under City Hall reports, and it's an evolution. There's still a little housekeeping to be done. I mean, environment and operational, they were split. Over time, we will reflect this to change. At the time that the disciplines were identified, they were together, so it shows you how long this process was in place. But yeah, other than that, this is I think a great way for a community that's interested in anything. You know, fire calls, you can see just how much work is doing. Recreation, I mean, the numbers there are kind of staggering when you look at them. So really, it's about sitting down and taking a look at how the quantity of work that's being done. It really is an eye-opener. So unless if there's something specific you would like to see, I'm happy to go through it, but I think it's something that, you know, as you see it, and you'll get an appreciation for what's being done.
Questions? Councillor Panchak.
Thank you, Councillor Miller, and thank you, Mr. Coyle, for coming. So, you know, credit needs to be given to Councillor Carr, who first brought this idea up. And I thought it was more than a year ago, so I'm not sure when the committee was struck, but I thought that was sort of in the first part of our term. The private sector for many years has used performance-based tracking methods to determine efficiencies, to determine areas of greatest need so they can allocate resources, et cetera, et cetera. And certainly, in my business, we use a lot of this information, and I was quite surprised that we didn't have similar tracking structures or systems when I got elected for the city of Belleville. And I guess what I'd like to do is just sort of the big reason why I supported this initiative was because information is important to be able to track performance. Tracking performance allows us to hold people accountable. People who are doing an exceptional job, the performance shows out, and we want to make sure that we recognize that exceptional job and recognize people's skills and look towards promotion, et cetera. At the same time, when there's underperformance, these indicators are important for us to be able to either develop a work plan to correct that, to have a heads up on where there are problems. So I wonder if you can show me, this is the first time I've seen this, I wonder if you can show me in some of our other departments, besides culture in terms of tracking attendance, but how would we be able to use this to demonstrate the effectiveness of individual departments for the city?
Well, at the present time, because we're in data collection mode, you need something to compare it to, and so it would be difficult. This is our baseline, and so at next year you'll be able to have something. I mean, in finance, most of theirs are generated at year end. So in finance, you'll see 2017, like the rating for the city, the return on investment for the overall portfolio, just our assessment, I think at $5.8 billion. But they calculate it at the end of year. So that's the only time we can really do an articulate comparison, other than things that are reported monthly. I mean, you could see a dive, but again, it's very difficult because it could be, for example, if they're reporting on how many trees were planted in January, you're not going to get a big number.
Yeah.
So it's really about collecting the data, then setting thresholds and comparing them, and when one falls below a threshold, then clearly articulating that there's an issue that we should probably address. Okay. But I mean, there are so many disciplines being identified there.
So fair enough, and I understand that, and certainly we have to populate that data to be able to have something to compare to. I get that part of it. I guess what I want to do is just make sure that we're collecting the appropriate data so that we can come back and be able to have useful information, and not just departmental, but also I think to look at who are our top performers in terms of staff, as well as some of the staff that need some assistance. So for example, if we were to look at engineering and development services and we talk about permits, will this data allow us to be able to track how many permit applications individual staff are dealing with, the average length of time that it takes for applications to get processed, et cetera, so that we can, we as councillors always hear feedback from the community regarding how effective it is to deal with different city departments. Will that data include that specific information? I appreciate some of it has to be protected because of confidentiality, but we need that information, right, to be able to say that we are doing a good job, or we're not doing a good job, or this is an area that we can improve, or this is an area that we are top in class in and that we want to to use that as an example for perhaps other departments.
Well, when you click on a tile, you get those very specific disciplines that were identified. I haven't been asked, or I'm not aware of anyone being asked to track an individual's performance. Most often it is by section or by department, and that's the way it'll come through. I mean, the data right now is very specific to those disciplines. That's why I say it's a work in progress, because as the committee agreed on these, and a number of managers and directors worked very diligently to get the data in there. But I think now that it's been unveiled and council can have a look at it, if they have other disciplines that they want to see or other changes, I'm sure that through that committee we can discuss it. I think this is really the starting point. We're collecting the data, and now we need, based on the disciplines that were identified by that committee, and I'd like to see it continue to evolve. I mean, our dashboard is pretty good for a community our size. There's communities like Edmonton, which have 5 people that do nothing but feed their dashboard, which is spectacular. So we're really trying to find that happy medium where we have the resource and the time that it takes for, you know, each of the directors and managers just to hunt down and find that data and put it in there. We have to spend a lot more time with them automating those processes. That, you know, it's when a discipline is asked for, they need to find a way to get that data like that. And I think that's, again, part of that evolution of finding ways that it's that much easier for us to produce the data and make it accessible.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And, you know, it's in 2018, data is so important. You can't just make decisions running a city the size of Belleville by saying, you know, I think we're doing a good job, or my gut feel. I'm not getting a lot of complaints, so we must be doing a good job in that department. We actually have to have that empirical information to do it. So thank you for bringing that forward. Thank you to Councillor Carr for originally bringing the idea forward. I see this evolving in the future to be a really important tool for us to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck in an era where dollars are so hard to come by, and this is a way for us to demonstrate value. And so, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to ask, I don't want to put him on the spot because I didn't ask him about this earlier.
Councillor Carr wants to speak. So.
If he can, and when he does speak, I wonder if he can just touch on the process to get here, and to let us know, what his thoughts are about how this will evolve in the future. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Coyle, and your department. Mr. Coyle's department's been very effective in terms of putting a visual and data collection to a lot of work that the committee's been working on. The committee was struck in 2015. Mayor Christopher and Councillor Graham and myself are on that committee. It's taken a lot to get us to a point where we actually have some key performance indicators. There was a lot of consultation with the directors and department heads. It was back and forth as a working group, if you will, in terms of what fits, what doesn't, how do we measure it. This is all at the departmental level, and because it is a public visible, that we're not going to get into individuals, but there are some that you'll be able to monitor the performance. Some is just pure raw data, but for example, a building is showing there the one tile monthly days to clear standards order. So right now it's showing NA, which means there's no data has been entered, but hopefully over time that gets entered, and we'll be able to start seeing those clearance rates in transportation operation services as it relates to when you call and you say I've got a tree down, or I've got a culvert that's plugged or something like that, and with the work order system that's in place now, it's much better for tracking. So then therefore we're going to get a better idea of what the clearance rates are when members of the public call in and say I've got a problem. And then those measurement tools are going to be available here on this dashboard, which again will provide good information to the public in terms of what goes on, how we're delivering those services. And because has just started out, as Mr. Coyle had mentioned, we're just simply in data collection. There's some departments that have been collecting data because they're legally obligated to under current legislation. The province has in the past required a number of performance indicators for specific purposes, which is a kind of a catch-all, and so therefore it's not user-friendly when you start comparing one municipality to the other. This simply is for our use here to articulate what we're doing, how we're performing to the public, but also I can see this as a tool in terms of down the road budgeting and things of that nature, and this is a good foundation. So this is just the first floor, if you will, on a product that we can continue to build on. But it had taken some time for us to get to this point. There was some delays along the way. Some departments were very quick to the game that are, like I say, reporting on statistics now, and have been for some time. So this was secondhand for them, just to say, you know what, if you need it, you got it. Other departments, not so much. It's a little bit of a why are we doing this, and and then how do we do this? So we've worked through that as a committee, and staff have been good in terms of articulating that down. Just getting in the habit now of reporting, and this is the game we're in, that we have to start articulating this information out to the public. So that's kind of the process.
Any other questions? Good information. Glad to see we're finally on it. Thank you very much. There's not a resolution per se, but can I have a motion to receive the demonstration, please? Councillor McCaw, Councillor Boyce, all in favor? And that is passed. On to 7.1, correspondence, May 3rd, 2018, email from Lisa King, and this is consent item 8B2, the resolution at the May 3rd, 2018, email from Lisa King regarding the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments, application B77-1047, 111 Great St. James Street, be received and referred to consent item 8B2. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Denius, seconder from Councillor Panchuk. All in favor? And that is passed. Motion to go into committee of the whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with yours truly in the chair. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Carr and Councillor Boyce. All in favor? Thank you. I'm not going to move. 8A, reports. The agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council. 8A1, contract number RFP TOS 2018-13, rehabilitation of 2 low-floor Nova buses. Capital and Fleet Asset Managers Report, CNFAM-2018-06. The resolution that the request for proposal submission from Prevost Car Inc., a Volvo Group, be accepted for contract number RFP TOS 2018-13, rehabilitation of 2 low-floor Nova buses in the amount of $151,409.79, plus $19,683.27 HST, for a total amount of $171,093.06, and bus rental in the amount of $60,000 plus $7,800 HST, for a total amount of $67,800 for 2 buses for 4 months. This being the most qualified proposal received, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Denius. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is passed. 8A2, contract number RFP TOS 2018-09, retire services contract, Capital and Fleet Asset Managers Report number CNFAM-2018-07. The resolution that the request for proposal submission from Benson Tire be accepted for contract number RFP TOS 2018-09, retire services contract pursuant to the Capital and Fleet Asset Managers Report number CNFAM 2018-07, being the most qualified proposal received, and at the estimated yearly cost of $60,000, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Carr and Councillor Panchuk. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor? And that is passed. 8A3, 2017 Belleville Pollution Control Plant, Ontario Clean Water Agency Performance Report. General Manager of the Environmental Services Report number GMES 2018-04, which deputation item 6.2 refers. And the resolution is that the General Manager of Environmental Services Report number GMES 2018-04, regarding the 2017 Ontario Clean Water Agency Performance Report for the Belleville Pollution Control Plant be received as information. Councillor Denius, can I have a seconder, please, put it on the floor? And Councillor Panchuk. Questions? All in favor? And that is passed. And 8A4, supply of a rescue apparatus cab and chassis, Director of Fire and Emergency Services Report, FES 2018-04. And the resolution reads, the Council waives Section 16, request for tender of the city's purchasing bylaw, number 2017-234, and authorize the purchase of a cab and a chassis from Buddy's Garage, Inc. at the cost of $60,000 U.S. and additional shipping costs, applicable taxes and fees due upon delivery into Canada, estimated at $12,000 for a total of $90,000 Canadian, be approved. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Carr. Can I have a seconder? And that'll be Councillor Denius. Questions? Seeing none. All in favor? and that is passed. 8B, consent items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council can consider such items individually. So we'll go around the table. Councillor McCaw, Councillor Boyce, Councillor Denys, Councillor Carr,
No, thank you.
and Councillor Thompson,
No, thank you.
and Councillor Panchuk.
No, thank you.
In that case, that all other agenda items be
Councillor
approved
Miller,
with no
sorry.
exceptions?
I believe that
Oh.
falls under the conflict that I have 8B, right? 8B4?
Oh, I jotted that
You wanna
down.
pull that
That,
one and vote it?
8B4, you're right.
Do you want to pull it and vote it separately then?
So, we'll pull out 8B4 just separately, for the vote.
Okay.
Okay, and your conflict is noted. This,
okay.
So, City of Belleville Grant Committee, report, council approve the recommendations of the grant committee for those applications outlined in the Director of Finance Treasurer's report, DF 2018-13 City of Belleville Grant Committee. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Carr, Councillor Panchuk. All in favor? Okay, and that is passed. And can I have a motion for, and thanks for pointing that out, motion for all other items under 8B, please. Councillor Thompson, and seconder, anybody? Councillor Denys. Any questions? All in favor? And that is passed. We will move on to 8C. Council information matters. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. Councillor Panchuk, Councillor Thompson,
No, thank you.
and Councillor Carr.
No, thank you.
Councillor Denys,
No, thank you.
Councillor Boyce, and Councillor McCaw.
No, thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept 8C 1, 2, and 3? Councillor Denys, Councillor Boyce, all in favor? Can I have a motion to rise and report? Councillor Carr, Councillor Denys, all in favor? Moving on to bylaws. Yep, we do have a conflict that has been declared on 2018-71, which is a bylaw to appoint municipal bylaw enforcement officers. So we'll go through that. No need to leave.
Okay.
So for first reading, this is 2018-71. Councillor McCaw?
I just wanted to ask that we pull 2018-70 for discussion.
On second reading.
On second reading,
Okay.
yes.
So on 2018-71, this is first reading, so no discussion yet. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Councillor Boyce, and seconded Councillor Denys. All in favor? We'll pull that one for second reading immediately and discussion. 2018-71, bylaw to appoint municipal bylaw enforcement officers for the purpose of enforcing bylaws Quinte Mall. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Carr, Councillor Boyce. Any discussion? All in favor? And that is passed in third reading, 2018-71. Can I have a motion, please, for third reading? Councillor Carr, Councillor Thompson, all in favor, and that is passed. 2018-70 we'll get to in a moment. First of all, 9A, first reading of bylaws, and for purpose of expediency, just go through the numbers if that's okay with council. 2018-62, 63, 2018-64, 2018-65, 66, 2018-67, 2018-68, 2018-69, 2018-70, and 2018-72. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Boyce, pardon me, Councillor Denys, all in favor, first reading. Thank you. Second reading of bylaws, and for discussion as well. First of all, 2018-46, bylaw to amend bylaw number 12967, being a bylaw to regulate traffic within the corporate limits of the Corporation of City of Belleville, and there is a Schedule B parking restrictions regarding Dundas Street East. Can I have, no, we'll do them all. 2018-62, this is second reading, 2018-63, 64, 65, 66, 2018-67, 2018-68, 2018-69, 2018-70, 2018-71, and 2018-70, not 70, we're pulling, pardon me, we've done 71, right. Okay, so strike 2018-71, it's done, and 2018-72. So a motion, does anybody want to pull anything? Okay, Councillor Carr is putting all on the table. Councillor Boyce, any discussion on any of these? Councillor McCaw, did you have something?
Sorry, 2018-70?
Yes?
So I just wanted to, I'm not sure who to address this to. We're looking at appointing more members to the BDIA. We're very close to an election, and I'm wondering why at this point we would be appointing new members right now, and why we wouldn't be leaving it until the next council to do so.
I believe the city clerk can answer that.
Through the chair to Councillor McCaw, traditionally, council has, without question, appointed members at the recommendation of the board. The board, through the staff at the BDIA, have relayed to me that they've had a number of people and vacancies on the board for quite some time, and the board has recommended this to council. But certainly, it's a bylaw of council, and council can do as they choose.
So in follow-up, can I remove that?
Go ahead.
Okay, so in follow-up, I'd like to delete 2018-70, if I can, to appoint these new appointees to the BDIA.
To delete it?
That's right, and just leave it as it stands until the next election. Is that something that can be done?
Okay, in this case, it's on the table, and if council wants to defeat the motion, then you could put one on. That would be it, contrary to what's in front of us. It would be a separate motion. So I'll call the vote. I'll pull 2018-70 for specific vote right now on second reading. So 2018-70, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, so it does pass. Second reading on all other bylaws, all in favor? I have a motion right on that. And all opposed? Okay, and that's passed, and we'll go to third reading. And again, 2018-46, 62, 2018-63, 2018-64, 2018-65, 2018-66, 2018-67, 2018-68, 2018-69, 2018-70, and 2018-72. Motion to put it on the floor, please. Councillor Panchuk and Councillor Carr. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. New business. I'll go around the table and then I have one here. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. Back on the 11th of December meeting, we passed a motion related to the cannabis retail stores that the province was announcing, and the City of Belleville was selected. However, we indicated in a motion that was passed that we wanted more time in order to work on a framework. And part of that motion was that the City of Belleville establish an interjurisdictional cannabis working group in order to prepare for the eventual establishment of a partnership between the LCBO/OCRB, which is the Ontario Cannabis Retail Corporation, and the City of Belleville as provincial retail stores continue to open across the province. I'd just like to get an update as to whether that working group has been established.
Director Beauvais, that's sort of in your department.
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, certainly planning staff have been working. I don't know that the working group has been put together yet. We have been keeping up to date with some of the information that is coming out of both the federal government and the provincial government, and just last week or the week before we were able to get copies of a new guideline for cannabis regulations put out by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So we're reviewing that, and I think when we have all that information together, we'll get a committee together to sit down and go through that. And we also have had some input from Councillor Daniels with the community standards bylaw that the clerk and I have have been looking into, so all that information would go to the committee, but as of yet, the committee has not been put together.
No, and I appreciate that, and I know that it was discussed at the planning committee last week. I think in looking at the news too, you know, the health, public health has come out and spoke about some concerns, and of course then some funding, because there's public education dollars that need to go along with it. I know that the police certainly have an active interest in this rollout. I know just the other day there was a discussion in the news of whether or not the technology for roadside sobriety tests would even be approved. And of course that's all going to be extra tools that cost money. And so I think that you know, the sooner this working group of all of these experts can get together would go a long way in terms of having a unified voice, if you will, having those discussions with the province to make sure, and I'm glad to see that there's been some discussion and some framework related to the monetary side in terms of now how the province will allocate some money to the municipalities. That wasn't there when we had this discussion back in December, so that's moving in the right step. It's just now we need to make sure that all those groups are advocating as one voice for our community. Thank you.
Councillor Panchuk?
Thank you. And just before I get to my items, I would agree with Councillor Carr, and I know that things are moving quickly after we had a fairly long heads up that this was coming, but you know, we need to get this thing going in terms of that committee, because planning is struggling with community standards. You know, we have an item later on under reconsideration that dealing with that. You know, we know Loyalist College is into that situation. Time is not on our side in terms of getting ourselves prepared, and I think we need to have something in place to provide a guideline and a framework for not just City Council to be able to consider applications, but also for members of the public to know what so they can provide input, but also for people interested in setting up business, etc. You know, I forget who said it at the meeting where we discussed back on April 9th, discussed that research and development facility. Like, you know, we're not ready today to deal with what we're expecting to be a large volume of activity. You know, I understand that things take time, but we don't have time on this one. So I think it's very important for us to get something out there. We can always amend it and fix it later on, but this committee is essential. So I echo Councillor Carr's comments on that. I have a number of items for new business. At the last City Council meeting, we approved the reopening of the Belleville Community Arts and Culture Fund round for the $10,000 that was left over. And in discussion with staff from then, we need to provide some direction for the deadline for that series of applications. And we had asked that we be able to have that back at the end of June, and it doesn't look like it's feasible. So I'm going to make a motion and that we set Friday, June the 15th as the deadline for the second round of the Belleville Community Arts and Culture Fund. That's my motion, and I'll just say to it that if we have the June 15th deadline, we can have the recommendations to council after it goes through that process for the July 9th meeting. We only have one meeting in July, so we won't meet again until the end of August. So that's the reason for the motion, if there's a seconder.
Councillor Boyce? Seconds? Okay. Any questions? All in favor of the motion? Passed.
Great, thank you. Second item I just want to ask, and I spoke briefly this afternoon with Director Cousins. I'm the City Council rep on the Belleville Downtown Improvement Association board, and I guess the best way to describe it is the board members have some concern regarding the Main Street Revitalization Initiative funding. Just for the benefit of members of council and people perhaps watching, the province has set out a round of funding for Main Street revitalization all across Ontario, and it is based on a per capita basis. It was announced, we knew we were getting it, we dealt with it during the budget time earlier in April. The amount that we receive as a city is $74,454.48. I guess the concern or the question that I want to bring forward on behalf of the board to the director is the BDIA feels there wasn't any consultation with respect to where those funds would be going. I wonder if the director could just let us know, confirm to us where they would be going. And I understand that the City of Quinte West had an involved consultative process with their BIA. Is the time for consultation over? Because I know we put that towards the facade program. And if it is not, or if it is there an opportunity for us to have some dialogue with the BDIA on this money?
That would go to Director Cousins.
Please.
To the Chair, Councillor Panchak, there's a report under the consent item 8B6 where we're getting, as you mentioned, just over $74,000. Two areas that and this is administered through, this was announced in January of 2018. It's administered through AMO, and basically they put in two conditions. One is for Main Street capital improvements such as signage, many other things. They also talked about a city having a community improvement plan, and we have that for the city. During the budget, for operating budget, the amount of $74,000 was, city does have a community improvement plan in place. The facade program is part of it, and it is well used. So during the budget issue, 7-02, it was decided to take this money of just over $74,000 and allocate it to the facade improvement program. At that time, there was no need to discuss with the downtown improvement. The council decided at that time to use the fund for the facade improvement program.
And just and so we're locked into that program for that $74,000. That's good. I will report back to them. They asked me to bring it forward, and that's my duty and responsibility to do that. So I thank the director for that. The last item I wanted to bring up is for Director Bove regarding the a petition that we received from residents of West Park Village, and the residents there have some concerns regarding the new Hastings County home for good that is that's being constructed, and I guess the concern that I have, and I wanted to ask the director to comment on it. The residents felt that when the application came forward for the building, it was to be a housing project, but subsequent to council giving approval, now there's information that the housing will have people such as residents that may be homeless, people with substance abuse issues, addicts, former residents of federal and provincial penal institutions. And I guess the concern is it's a concern about the fact that information wasn't disclosed at the time that we considered the application. And so I'm not familiar with that, and I wanted to get some clarification before I replied back to residents. Was that information disclosed when it went to planning in terms of the range of people that would be housed in this building? And if it wasn't, is that a requirement for that information to be disclosed?
Director Bove.
Through the chair to Councillor Panchak. It's always a balancing act when you're dealing with planning applications that relate to some form of public housing. I mean, the most important thing is we're under no obligation to disclose who is going to live there. We don't zone people, we zone uses. So this was an apartment building. There will be tenants in that apartment building, no different than any other apartment building. Having said that, the county was very upfront, I think, at the public meeting, indicating that they had partnership with numerous social service agencies in the community who would all be partnering to provide services and tenants to that building. And in fact, some of them will have offices to provide support for the tenants that are in there. So I think they did the best job they could. At the time, I don't know that they knew exactly the extent of the service agencies that were going to take part, but certainly some of them they did know, and they made that clear at the meeting.
Thank you. If I can just follow up. So this is a Gertzma development, correct, that they're building the building?
Through the chair to Councillor Panchuk, it's a partnership between the county. They've essentially contracted with Gertzma to build this building for them.
So I understand, I remember when Mr. Pine appeared at the podium talking about asking the city for some assistance, and they were, I guess, going through a bidding process for area municipalities, who would give them the best deal in terms of a break on some charges or taxes. It's a while ago, so I don't know exact deals, but they were looking for who would make the sweetest deal for them to site this location. At the time that this project for the building was being considered, was it announced that that was going to be the building? So I guess what I'm saying is that when Gertzma was making the application to get the building approved, did everybody know that that was going to be the project that Hastings County was looking at?
Yes, I believe they did. The county was very open. I think when they came to council, they were looking for bids from the broader community, and they were waiting to see what bids they got back. There was no guarantee the build was going to happen in Belleville. It could have happened in Quinte West or another local community. In the end, the bid they received from Gertzma on Sydney Street was the only bid that they received. You know, I think they had a pretty good idea going in that there wasn't too many sites that were ready to go to the extent that this one was, and that probably limited the number of bidders that they got.
Right. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Back during budget, we had Hastings County to the podium to discuss the long-term care. At that time, there were questions, and I'm not sure who asked the questions, regarding the number of residents, Belleville residents we had in Centennial Manor versus the number of Belleville residents we had in Hastings Manor. I now have that information that I'd like to pass along to everyone so they know.
Sure.
Okay, so there you go. Okay. Further to that, I'd like to ask, and I'm not sure who to ask, whether it be Mr. Kester, if there's been any further discussion with Hastings County with respect to the budget, and have they come to us with any ideas of negotiating that increase?
Mr. Kester.
Through the chair to Councillor McCaw and all of council. So their CAO called me, I think, a few days after the budget, and I just said council will be considering its options. Staff needs to basically consider our options, put them back to council, and then wait for council's direction. So currently we have some legal folks looking into the agreement. That's being done. I was given a message on Friday that they should have something back to us early this week, which is today or tomorrow. Once we get their information on what options are available under the current agreement, we'll be back to council with the report.
Councillor McCaw, did you have anything to follow up with?
I'm sort of toying with the idea. I realize we have a contract with them, and I understand that. I have no problem with negotiating that contract as well. But for this year, I really feel like we should be paying the increase. With that in mind, I'd like to, if I had a seconder, put a motion on the floor that we agree to pay the increase for this year that has been brought to us by Hastings County, and we can further look into negotiating the contract for the future years. If I had a seconder to that.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Boyce, it's a reconsideration. And so you would require 6 votes in order to bring it back. As far as putting it forward, Do you have a funding source?
I don't have a funding source, no. But I do believe it's the right thing to do. I mean, I think if not contractually the right thing to do, I think it's morally the right thing to do. Like I said, I have no objection to negotiating that contract for future years, but for now, I'd like to see it come back on the table. I'd like us to approve that increase based on a funding source. Pardon me, for reconsideration, yes.
Okay. So procedurally, we are dealing with a reconsideration, which will require 2/3 of a full council vote. And we don't have a full council, but the 6 votes will be required for those that are here. So before the motion goes on, a motion to reconsider. You and Councillor Boyce have put that motion forward. Okay. All in favor? Okay. So this is a recorded vote on the reconsideration motion. Okay, clerk?
Councillor Panchuk?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes?
Councillor Boyce?
Yes.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Deniers?
No.
Councillor McCaw?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Motion fails. Motion carries, sorry.
Motion carries.
For the reconsideration, you don't get sick.
Okay, so now that gets the reconsideration motion on the table. Do we need a separate motion? Okay. So, motion to go on the floor. Councillor Boyce, Councillor McCaw. Discussion. Councillor Thompson.
And I'd certainly stand behind Councillor McCaw's motion to pay the bill. I always thought, when we had it on the floor, the proper way would have been to pay the bill that we were sent. It's part of our obligation. I realize they're looking into the legal technicalities, but that building is needed in this community. There was reasons why that increase came across. A lot of it was because one of the bills passed by Ontario government, and staffing is low and care is higher. And by this way, if we'd have passed it originally, we would have paid the bill, and then we can always look into the agreement. And it's unfair to pass a motion not to pay a bill, especially we've had an obligation over the years, and then we can always look into it. So I commend for bringing that motion back on the floor and paying the bill.
Councillor Boyce.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I think everyone knows my opinion on it, and I look forward to seeing the lawyer's report, and I look forward to negotiating with the county and with our partners at Quinte West.
Okay, so we do have a situation where we're talking about, I don't have the numbers in front of me, obviously, but the increase was in excess of $400,000, I believe. So we're not reopening the budget, so perhaps Director Cousins can offer some options if this motion passes as to how we will pay that bill this year, as the taxes, they're out, and there won't be any turning back on that issue. Director Cousins, please.
For council, you've already passed the tax rate, so we'll just have to create 19,000 special levy bills for about $400,000. So we'll send out 2 tax bills?
I know on operational issues, it's never a good thing to go with one-time funding. But pending the outcome of any negotiations going forward, is there a reserve fund that we can dip into for this one time? Director? And I know that's not the
Well,
optimum way to approach this.
This is a little bit of a surprise. I'm gonna have to report. If we want find one-time funding, it'll have to be another report come back to council. Council approves all the funding from a reserve fund, so.
Councillor Panchuk?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Miller. Yeah, and maybe I would just suggest to Councillor McCaw and Councillor Boyce that if we would have some time to sort of work on some of those options, that would be a good thing, because I think regardless of how you sit on this issue, we would understand the difficulty of sending 2 separate tax bills in 1 year, and I don't think anyone wants that. But I do want to speak a little bit to the general issue and where we find ourselves. So, you know, we had our budget meeting, and when we voted not to grant the increase, for me, of course I knew we were going to have to come back and fund it this year, because our mechanism with outside agencies, and Hastings County is one of our outside agencies, our mechanism is to send back the budget and say that it is not acceptable. But we did that, and the reason why I voted in favor of that action, we did that because we had questions for the staff, and you know, Mayor Christopher was able to call them and have them come out on the Wednesday morning, I believe it was, and they were here, and we had a whole front row full of people from Hastings County. And as we went through and asked questions, I found them ill-prepared to answer them. They were basic questions about what was causing the increase. Why was it so much higher than and whatnot? What stuck in my mind and what kind of bothered me was that it was Bill 148, the new labor legislation, which was the reason for these significant increases, way higher than anything else that we saw from any other agency. I don't ever remember a board, an outside agency coming to us asking for a 50% increase. Perhaps this happened. I don't recall seeing it in the 3 years I've been here. We're talking about a very, very high increase. And we asked questions regarding issues that it was pretty easy to anticipate would come from the City of Belleville. You know, Councillor Denier's asked about number of residents, Councillor Graham, I think, as well, number of residents in the facilities, and information with respect to what do these facilities, Hastings County facilities, how do they compare to the private sector for long-term care in terms of ill days, sick days, and people missing from work and those kinds of things. And they were very ill-prepared to answer them. And I think that is what caused that answer for us. So we're sending back the budget for them to reconsider. I'm going to give Mr. Pine a little bit of leeway on what I think it would be very easy to judge as very disrespectful comments back to the City of Belleville's council. I know that the story that was in the local paper regarding the letter that was sent and everything was attributed to me, I know that was inaccurate. So I'm going to hope that some of the comments that I read about his questions for us, especially at the very beginning, I'm going to say that I'm hoping those were inaccurate. But in terms of partners and how we deal back and forth, that was potentially a very unprofessional response. Nonetheless, where are we today? We're in a situation in which we've asked for greater detail. They weren't able to provide it to council. I'm assuming they weren't able to provide it at the committee meetings when they discussed those items, or those questions may not have been asked. They should have been, but perhaps they weren't asked. So, you know, they should be answered now. What are the pressures that they're experiencing that are so much different than the rest of the world that is dealing with 148? Why are they having these difficulties for not just 1 year, but successive years of significant increases? The second thing was the whole idea about the agreement and questions. And so, if you recall, Councillor Denier's had some questions, and I believe the mayor had some questions regarding voting structure. I had some questions. I had some questions that I raised here at a city council meeting that weren't even relayed to them regarding lighting and some of the social housing projects. So we put together a letter that we compiled all of those things. But I'm hearing it referred to as I'm the only one who had any questions, and I asked all of those. So that letter was written, but some of the questions that I had, like my question specifically regarding ambulance services, I'm not asking Hastings County to look at a feasibility study for ambulance services. I'm asking our Director of Emergency Services. But somehow that made it into the letter as well. So I just wanted to say in summary that when City Council asks our members of our committees to bring forward questions, they should be done. When the Mayor asked a question regarding Quinte Conservation, Councillor Deniers, Councillor Carr, and Councillor Lai, the first opportunity we asked that question, we got the information back, it was relayed. You know, the fact that they're not even aware of that is a problem. The fact that we had questions that I'm assuming were not asked by members of the committee because they were ill-prepared to be able to answer them, that's also a problem. I think that when committees that we serve on are coming back at increases higher than council has directed them, and I sit on some that did that this year. Quinte Conservation had an increase that was higher than 1.5. The Library Board was an organization that had an increase higher than 1.5. Glanmore House was an organization that had an increase of higher than 1.5. But we made a full-throated defense of the reasons why it deserves special consideration. That defense did not happen on this. Members that sit on that committee did not come and explain to us to our satisfaction why we should fund that increase this year and explain it. And that's where we are today, and that's why we have this problem. And so, you know, of course we need to pay the amount we're obligated to, in my opinion. We need to take a look at an agreement that just allows us to be obligated without any recourse if council doesn't choose to do that. I understand that Mr. Pine's comments have softened a little bit. He's now willing to consider it after the very beginning being perhaps emotional in his response to the decision. But I would really recommend that Councillor McCaw and Councillor Boyce give us a couple of weeks till the next meeting to be able to dot the I's, cross the T's in terms of funding. We don't want to have two tax bills go out, and I hope that in the future we're not in the situation again where we have to do this with an organization like Hastings County.
Any other comments? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the first opportunity I've had to publicly discuss the matter since the budget meeting. I know that some of it, you know, in terms of the vote could be, or it was construed that it was somehow grandstanding. I particularly didn't like the fact that, and I guess kudos to the county for the spin, but this isn't about putting seniors at risk. And this is about the financial operation and the obligations that it has to the taxpayer. And I don't think anybody around this table for one moment is going to say that we were trying to jeopardize the seniors in the homes or their care. But it makes great headlines. The fact of the matter is, one of my first motions in this chamber was increasing the tax credit, doubling it over this 4-year term for low-income seniors, to keep them in their homes. So, you know, I think that should signify right off the bat where I was coming from in terms of how I view seniors in our community. So to suggest somehow that making a financial decision here, and that's the thing they go to, is it's going to impact the care. Well, there's a big operation here, and I'm kind of disappointed that they would pick seniors as the leveraging point, if you will, to start a fight. That doesn't seem right. Our capital budget we set in 2017, with that came a motion that we would, this is back in October, set an operating budget target of 1.5%. And in years past, when that hadn't occurred, and we didn't put that target in there, and the budget came to this council, we were very quick to turn it back to staff to say, do some more work and trim it down, okay? What's happened here is the Long-Term Care Committee sets their budget in March. We're already in a difficult situation because there's no time for maneuvering. There's no time to say, take it back and have a review, to suggest to the committee members, you know, go back and try to do a better job. Well, first of all, there's no time for that to happen. So I'm a little disappointed that the process is such that, and I understand with the province there is some funding and there is some delay, but it doesn't allow us the opportunity to say, send it back, do some more work, give us a better explanation, and then come to budget with the full story. Not, here it is, this is your agreement, pay it. If you don't, well, you don't care for seniors. That's how it's out there. And to me, that is so categorically false. I'm disappointed that that's been the message. The reality is this: you want headlines? Provincial funding, they lost $110,000 in provincial funding directly related to seniors' care. There's an election going on at the provincial level, so I'd start with that as a headline. Perhaps I'd also talk about the fact that not only did the new provincial legislation for paid emergency leave cause a problem, but here's the other thing that really got to me. And when this was debated and this was discussed at the deputation, and I asked a lot about sick leave, and I didn't go as far as I really wanted to go, but here's the issue. If you have $320,000 in sick leave usage, and you've only budgeted for $120,000, and you've got a $200,000 over budget in sick leave, the first question I would ask is, why isn't people coming to work? What kind of environment is there that they're not coming to work? That's the question that needs to be asked. Now, I understand that some of it's related to injuries and things like that, and as a result, WSIB has gone up, and I understand that that's a physical job. I've had family members in long-term care, and the work that the PSWs do has to be commended. It is the work that they do and the time that they put in and the care to those residents has to be commended. But at the same time is, how can you have that high of overage on your sick leave? There's a systemic problem there that needs to be wrestled to the ground. But that isn't being talked about. So as I look through this, you know, yes, we're talking about providing a service to seniors, but we have to have an opportunity to debate the numbers. We need the information up front, and we need the opportunity to go back. And we send budgets back all the time. But unfortunately, the way this system is set up right now is we don't have that opportunity. So we're at a state where it's a deadline, it's take it or leave it. And I guess what council was trying to say through that message is, you know what? We want you to do more work. We need more information. And that should be part of the budget process, and we would have never went down the path of we're not caring for seniors and we're putting seniors' care at risk. That is wrong. And I think we really need to look at how our budget structure works and communicate out the fact that the cycle has to be complementary to all the partners. And it certainly does not complement our work, what we're trying to do here. You know, a $400,000 increase, that's almost a 0.5% tax increase on your property tax bill. 0.5%. That is significant. And residents need to hear that, they need to know that, they need to understand that. Now, if that information's all out there well enough in advance, and for Councillor Deniers and I, we meet with our residents that we represent ahead of time and ask for their input. If I had all of that detail to that degree and said, are you comfortable with that, and I got that feedback, then I have no problem standing in this place and making that decision. But when I don't have the information, I can't present it to my constituents, and then I get it last minute and there's no other option, well then you're kind of back against the wall. And so, you know, the vote was a message of we got to work together, but we have to have better budgeting processes. And so I can tell you right now, I certainly care for seniors, and I appreciate their contributions to our community over the years. I want them to live out their life healthy and to have the medical support that they require every single day.
Thank you, Councillor Carr, and Councillor Panchuk couldn't agree with you more. Councillor Boyce, I believe, no, Councillor Deniers, sorry.
Thank you. I agree with the statements that Councillor Carr is making, and you know, we certainly heard quite a bit about the audacity of our questions and almost like how dare we. But, Councillor Panchak said it is a financial decision. It was a financial decision only. We're obligated to our taxpayers and to ask those questions. We hadn't seen that budget. We had the figures. We had not seen that budget before that day. And thank goodness we asked them to come to the table, and that's how we learned about all the overages. We didn't know about the overtime. We didn't know about the sick time. Like I say, it's the first time we were getting that information, and that's why I voted no. I totally care for the seniors, and, I received some mail over it, and, the wrong message got out there. And I'm not backtracking. I think that the questions that we asked were legitimate and obligated on our parts to ask, and I will maintain that. And our CIO says that we're now looking to get legal options, and I'm going to stand fast until I see what those legal options are.
Councillor Boyce.
I think I made the motion, so I'll wait till the end.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'm just going to, Councillor Carr brought up a couple of good points, and, the budget, maybe we should get it earlier. So we have got a little more time, because it is one of our largest budget items when we discuss the long-term care, emergency measures, and social services. It is one of our larger budget items. So maybe we need to push the county to get our budgets earlier. But a couple of things in that budget, and I don't have it in front of me. Councillor Carr showed me a couple of good points. The sick time is a concern, and that's really where a lot of it was addressed. And the concern of the long-term care, because of the sick time, people are time off, understaffed. Certainly the people, the residents we're getting in there are demanding more care, and we're obligated to give them that care. We had some cutback of $110,000, and that is unfair, and that's for the provincial government, because that was cut back in care level, but yet we're hearing from Hastings County, the Hastings Manor and Centennial Manor, that the residents need more care. So provincial government cuts back, but our taxpayers has to pick up that deficit someplace, and there was more care needed. So some of that was strictly in staff time, some of it because of sick time, some of it coming back because of cutbacks. So it's a tight budget, and I realize that we maybe need to get that budget earlier so that we get time to digest it. I certainly want to stand behind the committee members. I think the committee members have asked some of those tough questions at the when it's brought to us as committee, and we got the answers. And when we voted in the committee level, it was voted. There was 4 members of City Council on that, and we all voted for that. When it came here, then we only have 4 members, so it came here and got a different vote. But I must say, the board members asked the tough questions. Some of the, Councillor Panchak brought up about reports on lighting. We have a report out to the residents that we go to every 3 times a year, and we ask those questions in each one of them, and there is a report back. And Councillor Panchak's wanting a more extensive report on lighting and security, and from what I understand, that's being developed, and we'll be coming to council. But I'm just going to stand behind the council members that sit on that committee. We ask the tough questions and get the answers. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Boyce, you made the motion? You're fine? Okay, then we need one more addition then, if you will, if I'm reading this right. And that is, okay, whatever the will of council will be on the motion is fine, but we do need to identify how we fund it. So perhaps an addition to the motion for referring it back to staff for options. Councillor Boyce, would you agree to that? Yes. On a friendly amendment, Councillor McCaw? Okay. Anything else? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Recorded vote? Okay. And we'll have Director McDonald read the motion before he calls for the recorded vote.
Can I just have clarification on the vote, on the motion first?
Yes.
It's to approve it, but wait for funding source.
Yes. Okay. So can you read the motion, please?
If I can, through the chair. So my understanding of the motion on the table is that the City of Belleville pay the 2018 Hastings County operating levy for long-term care and refer to staff for funding source, for identification of a funding source.
Everyone's clear? Okay. Thank you. You're on.
Councillor Thompson? Yes. Councillor Boyce? Yes. Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Deniers?
No.
Councillor McCaw?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Panchuk?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. New business, anyone else? In which case I have one, and it's a resolution and a bylaw, and a very pleasant one. Moved by myself, and I will need a seconder, Councillor Carr, that bylaw number 2018-74, being a bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of a medical services agreement between the Corporation of the City of Belleville and Dr. Hoge Azizi, dated the 14th day of May 2018, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 14th day of May 2018. This is an addition. I know Councillor McCaw, did you want to declare?
I do want to declare conflict, please.
Okay, so Councillor McCaw will declare a conflict on this bylaw. No, you're okay. Any questions on the bylaw? First, second, and third reading. A new medical services agreement, new doctor, all in favor? Passed. Thank you. We have a motion from Councillor Boyce. I'll read it, and then Councillor Boyce can speak to it. That Council reconsider the motion under Reports Item 8A2 at the April 9, 2018 Council meeting concerning an application to amend zoning bylaw number 10245 at 250 Sydney Street. Councillor Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You want to call for a seconder? And
what's that? I don't think I need a second. Oh, do I need a second?
Yeah, we need a seconder.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And a seconder on this, because this is a reconsideration, and so just again, Councillor Thompson has left as he had already declared the conflict. So here's the situation before you speak on it. As a reconsideration, all 6 members of council still here will have to vote yes. Any dissenting vote will preclude it from going on the floor.
That's fine.
And that's according to the procedural bylaw. So all in favor of I'm sorry?
Oh, I get to say something.
We don't have the seconder? Yeah, sorry, I thought we had it. Councillor Panchuk. Okay, my apologies. You can speak to it now, Councillor.
Thank you. And I know I can't speak on the specifics, but I can speak on the option to reconsider. A motion to reconsider is clearly based on 3 rules. One is there was confusion. 2 is there's new information about the topic. Or 3, there was a procedural error. While I believe it's safe to say that there may have been some confusion as witnessed in the proceedings, I'm going to argue that the procedural error occurred. Item 8.4, excuse me, I just got nosebleed, in the procedural bylaw discusses making amendments to motions. Subsection 4 states, I was wondering if I can we do announcements first?
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
We'll come back to it. Thank you. We'll come back to that. Announcements. Councillor Panchuk.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. As chair of the grant committee, it's my pleasure to formally announce that a second round of funding is available from the City of Belleville Community Arts and Culture Fund. The deadline for application of the second round is Friday, June the 15th, and a decision will be made by Belleville City Council at the July 9th regular council meeting. Information and application forms are currently available on the City of Belleville website. As part of our recognition of the importance of the arts and culture sector to our community, we make an investment in Belleville's cultural capital to foster cultural vitality and to increase the capacity of the arts community to create and produce artistic works of performance. These funds are intended to enhance the community's cultural life and cultural economy and help promote financial stability and sustainability. We encourage all interested and qualified individuals and groups to apply for this funding. It's also my pleasure to issue a reminder to residents and organizations that we are accepting applications for the social infrastructure funding available as part of our revenue partnership with Shorelines Casino. The City of Belleville Grant Committee is accepting applications for non-profit organizations that primarily provide services to individuals who are experiencing adverse social impacts due to the economy, housing, physical, family, cultural, social exclusion, disability, and ethnic, racial, or religious factors. This information is also available on the City of Belleville website, and the deadline for applications to be received is Tuesday, May the 29th. We've already received a number of excellent applications, and I look forward to bringing the recommendations of Council on behalf of the committee next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Panchuk. Anyone else on announcements? I have a few. First of all, I would like to proclaim May the 16th as Do Something Nice for Your Neighbor Day. That is on May the 16th. Do it every day. Also, I would like to proclaim the week of May 20th to 26th as National Public Works Week. Please help me in thanking those who work in our public works for all that they do for the city. It's an incredible job. They are out there, rain, shine, snow, the worst weather, you name it, keeping our roads clear, keeping our entire infrastructure system operating. And so, National Public Works Week. So, Mr. Reid, pass along Council's best to your group, please. I would also like to proclaim the entire month of May as Huntington Disease Awareness Month. Huntington Disease Awareness Month aims to raise awareness to help slow and eventually stop this devastating disease. And just last week, longtime assistant to the Chief Administrative Officer, Rick Kester, and his predecessors over decades, Debbie Parks retired as the assistant after a 45-year career with the City of Belleville. And it's ironic how small a world it can be, because that was, I believe, Thursday, and I happened to be in Ottawa on Saturday taking my mother out for an early Mother's Day brunch, and who was there but Debbie Parks and her husband. So she's already getting into this retirement thing big time. Nonetheless, did you want to say anything about Debbie? Because that's an incredible run and a very, very significant role she played in our community.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, and Debbie, she did not want a big thing in front of council. We ask a lot of, well, all of our retirees, really, if they want to come to council and be recognized at council. Some choose to do that, some choose not to, and Debbie's kind of a low-key person, did not want to do that. So we as a department took her out for an evening, again, just her direct co-workers on the 4th floor, and we took her out to a lunch on her last day. So, yeah, Debbie, you know, I can't say enough about her. She's worked with, I believe, 5 CAOs. She's worked, I think, in almost every department of the city over her 45-year career. She knows the city, I would dare say, better than anybody else almost. She knows the people, and she knows the departments, what they do, and it makes it very, very easy for her to deal with a lot of issues in our office. So she's been a great mentor to the people we have now working on the 4th floor, which I know they sincerely appreciate. I believe she has they were looking at the records, and I think she is one of the longest-serving city employees, if not the longest. I think she is, actually. So, anyway, you know, certainly our best from the city's, our staff, and from council. We certainly wish her a happy and long retirement. She's certainly well deserving of it, and she's going to be missed. But we have some others that will step up, I'm sure.
No question. We wish her well. Also, you recall back, seeing as we're talking about budget not too long ago, Chief of Police was here during the budget presentation, and at the time, you recall that Chief Gignac talked about capital needs for the police services, and that they were working with area sponsors to help offset some of those needs. This morning, there was a presentation of a third system to the police services. It's an automated license recognition system. You'll recall that Council has supported 2 of those. A third has been purchased through the local community, And this morning, Rob Haggerty of ITS, Mark Hanley of Tim Hortons, Dennis McCullough of Canadian Tire, Ross McDougall, former mayor of McDougall Insurance, Peter Smith of Peter Smith Chevrolet, and John Charette of Starboard Communications were all recognized at Myers Pier, not only for the automated license plate recognition system. The City of Belleville now has 3 of those. You may recall the chief giving an explanation as to what that paraphernalia is. There's 30 in the entire province, and we now have 10% of them in this city, and that is huge. And also, the contribution from Starboard Communications was for a trailer that was badly needed. That took place this morning, and so police services are certainly backing up what they've told council, and that they are going out there finding local sponsors for some of these key infrastructure additions, and that happened this morning. Councillor Boyce, are you okay to proceed? In that case, we'll move back on motions, and this is on the reconsideration motion.
My apologies. I'm getting it cauterized, so I'm having a couple issues.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
If I may, Councillor Boyce, just before I leave again, make one announcement. The Belleville Sign, we were in Kingston, Larry Glover and one of the committee members in Kingston that's making the sign. The letters arrived in Belleville last week. They're being mounted on a trailer as we speak, and we hope to unveil that sign within the next week and a half, 2 weeks. We're just trying to figure out the time and the place. So the sign is ready, and you will be very proud of it when we get it. So
it'll be ready for Canada Day and Waterfront Festival.
It'll be ready long before that, especially for the show coming up in June.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Boyce.
Thank you again. My apologies. I was talking about item 8.4 in the procedural bylaw, which discusses making amendments to motions. Subsection 12, item 2, with your permission, if I can sit, clearly states that amending motion shall not be directly contrary or propose a direct negative to the main motion. And I believe that essentially our amending motion, which Director Bove stated would allow growing, went contrary, contrary to the second part of the motion, which stated no growing. For this, I'm asking council to reconsider.
So, okay, so it's just Councillor Boyce who can speak on that.
Yeah.
All 6 have to approve.
Yep.
So, did you want a recorded vote? Do you need that, or will a show of hands
I was asking for a recorded vote.
You've called for it?
A recorded vote, too.
Okay. I have all these puns running through my head, but I think I'll leave them parked. Yes. They wouldn't be appropriate.
That's the start.
Okay.
Councillor Boyce?
Yes.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Deniers?
No.
Councillor McCaw?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Panchuk?
Yes.
I have one motion failed.
Sorry, Councillor Boyce. We've moved on to confirmatory bylaw. That bylaw number 2018-73. Oh, we'll let Councillor Thompson come back. We need somebody in the room. Yeah. And actually, where is he? Does anyone have a notice of motion, by the way? I'll wait for Councillor Thompson in case he does. Okay, thank you. Actually, even with these delays, it's still one of the shorter meetings we've had in a while. Councillor Thompson, do you have any notice of motions? Okay, in that case, confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2018-73, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held May 14, 2018, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 14th day of May, 2018. Can I have a motion? Councillor Carr. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Denys. All in favor? Motion to adjourn. Councillor Carr, Councillor Thompson, all in favor. Thank you very much.